Hey everyone, how's it going? AZREN here. Hope you guys are doing well. I wanted to talk about something interesting that occurred to me roughly, call it an hour and a half ago while I was in my intensive Chinese lesson or Mandarin lesson. And it was the value of input. And I wanted to sort of make a whole video about this. Now, what's really interesting is that when you look at the whole language learning world, one of the major things that people often place an emphasis or place a focus on is the importance of actually speaking and the importance of conversation. And let's be real, I agree. I think that is incredibly important, like to be talking and talking and talking with native speakers or people better than you. Of course, that logically, without a shadow of a doubt, is super crucial, right? Now, the one thing that is not talked about quite as much, I'm just gonna turn a light on here, that is not talked about quite as much is how important it is to get input, aka to listen and or to be reading. I think it depends on your learning style and depends on your brain on the reading side or listening side. But one of the things that, at least for the way my brain works and the way that I like to learn languages, what tends to happen for me is that if I get a lot of input, meaning I do a lot of listening for an extended period of time, or I do lots of reading, whether it's a textbook or whether it's, reading messages that someone sent me or whatever it is, if I get input for an extended period of time, a couple things happen. Number one, my brain gets more used to the sounds in the language, which is incredibly important for being able to understand native speakers. That's number one. Number two, I think it indirectly helps me with pronunciation because I keep hearing the language, that when I go to speak, naturally it tends to have a bit of an effect on the way that I am speaking when I choose to speak whatever language. I think similarly what happens as well is when you are constantly listening, especially if you're an auditory learner, a lot of the ways that the people you're listening to speak, a lot of the different mannerisms they have, at least for me anyway, I feel like you start to adopt them unconsciously. You start to talk and start to use certain words and certain ways of speaking that the people you're listening to speak. And so what's interesting is that, at least for me, this is all personal. I actually don't know if this is the same for everyone. I would be curious for everyone else's experiences with language learning, but for me, when I've done lots of listening, I feel like it helps my speaking. And when it helps my speaking, that actually, for me personally, translates into my writing, because if I can speak better, I feel like I can write better, at least a little bit, immediately, or very, very quickly. And so for me, I think the whole listening side of things is incredibly important. Also, on a similar side of the coin is when you start to look at the importance of reading. Now, this is a little bit of a different side. For me personally, when I am doing listening and reading at the same time, for example, if I am, if I'm going through Chinese lessons right now and we're going through the textbook, I'm reading passages in the textbook out loud, I'm learning new vocabulary throughout the textbook by reading, etc., etc., I feel like that combination is a very powerful one. It really makes sure, at least for me anyway, it makes sure that the things that I am often, it's hard to explain, when I am hearing someone talk about something that's new to me, and I am seeing it in a written form at the same time, I somehow or another that is locking the information away a little bit better in my brain than if I just, for example, who knows, just maybe read it or just maybe heard it or whatever the case may be. Which also, interestingly, whenever I am traveling abroad and I'm learning a language, often I will carry around like my phone, or I'll carry around like a notebook or something like that, and I will actually every time I hear things, I will actually write it down on my phone, on a piece of paper, or often even better, on my hand. Why on my hand? Well, I write on my hand because then I consistently, throughout the whole day, I'm going to see my hand, and I'm consistently reading it over and over and over and over, and when I read it, I quietly say it to myself, and it just reinforces that word. So overall, I think we drifted away from the main topic, which was talking about input in language learning, aka listening and reading, but overall, I think that's a very, very important thing that I don't know if it's as talked about as, for example, the importance of conversation and speaking. So I thought I'd jump on camera and talk a little bit about it. Hope you guys liked the video, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye for now.